So the question that we're going to be addressing today is, does science disprove the Bible?
Okay, so actually what we're seeing now with all of the breakthroughs in science, and especially moving into some of the things that we've never had the technology to see before, we're actually seeing that science is proving the Bible more than ever before. Science is not disproving it, it's actually proving it. And one of the things, this is something that you may not know, because I don't think that it's actually reported everywhere. I don't think that it's given the attention. It's kind of like, if you ever felt like there's some bias in media and bias in things, you got to remember the devil's trying to keep the truth down. He's trying to keep the truth down. And one of the things that you're seeing, you would think that science is constantly disproving the Bible based off a lot of reports and scientific reports. But what's actually happening is that there is so much evidence in science that the Bible is true. People are having to, on purpose, hide it. I mean, it's literally being pushed down and ignored. And I'm going to go over a couple of those things. There's some, fresh scientific data and things that are coming out that are really proving the Bible. But before we do that, let's just look at the Bible. Should science prove the Bible, right? And I would say yes, actually. Let's look at Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. Romans chapter 1. And I love this verse. I saw something in this verse a while back, and it really, really blessed me. So Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, God's invisible attributes, His eternal power and His divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. Now, when I saw this verse, what I saw in it was the clearly seen. In other words, see, if we will actually start to look at science and look at the creation, we will clearly see it. And I think you can take this verse in a couple of ways. Number one, when you and I just look out, we're not necessarily particle scientists or nuclear physicists or anything like that, but we can look outside and look at a tree and just look at a leaf and the design of it. You and I can look at, especially with the video equipment we have here, look at the eyeball and how intricate and amazing it is. If we have one of the highest tech lenses that we have and equipment, and we swing it back from something close to far, our lenses and our computers are just now, after all these years, getting to the place where it can focus and have that range. It can focus that quick. But here's another thing is, you got to have 2 or 3 of them easy to have the range of vision, the field of vision that we have. And yet we've had it in our eyes all this time. That stuff doesn't just come together in that way. So you can just look at it, and it should prompt us to faith. And here's the word, because it's clearly seen. One of the things that I found, and this really helped me out a lot, was if God's attributes are clearly seen in nature, then in order to not see it, you have to be a little bit rebellious towards it. In other words, you're saying, I don't want to clearly see it, right? And because His attributes truly are clearly seen. And, like some of the things in science where if we were just, 1 or 2% of difference, closer or further away from the sun, we would either freeze or burn up. It had to be exactly in the location that we are. These are things, that stuff doesn't just happen. That's why there's not life on every other planet, But they're clearly seen. But I think also you can take that and say it's clearly seen in science. And that's some of the things that are happening. Like, for instance, talking about just creation, one of the big beliefs is that with the Ice Age, and then you had glaciers that pushed everything down and all of this stuff. Well, they just found, I was just on the phone with somebody and they were telling me they just had a discovery recently where they actually found a dinosaur bone with literally a red blood cell in it, which shows us it wasn't billions of years ago or millions of years ago. It had a red blood cell in it, and it was laying on top of the ground. which means glaciers didn't push it off, right? Another thing that you see is one of the things I was talking, I actually have a couple of people there in the medical community and in some intense study right now. And one of the things that they were saying is when you go into like talking about the Big Bang and evolution taking millions of years to actually produce life and things like that. So here's one of the things. We have to have a certain temperature to have life here. We just talked about the sun. So what they found is if we had the sun not producing the heat that it is right now, it would be almost impossible for life to be here. It'd be too cold or it'd be too hot, right? Okay, but here's the issue. In order for this primordial soup to spring life out of it, it would have to have protection from that sun's radiation. But the issue is because the ozone layer actually would protect, it protects us from the sun's harmful radiation. That's one of the things that allow us to live and not get burned up by radiation, okay? It's the ozone layer. But here's the issue. The ozone layer can't form until there's life here. It can't form. So without life here at the, first, without life here first, it couldn't form, but without it forming, without it being there, life couldn't produce. So they have to come in at the exact same moment, like when God said, let there be light. And so what you're seeing is science has proven it. Another thing is this. I heard this, and I heard this report several years ago, probably 10, maybe 15 years ago now. So this is a little bit old, but still, you had some scientists that were diving into DNA, and they got deep into the DNA, able to see things that they have never seen before. And when they got down to it, these are biologists, but they're looking at it and they're saying, this looks like code. This looks like code. This looks like computer programming code. And so they called in some programmers, and I believe they were actually from Microsoft, that used to be at Microsoft. And they called in the programmers and said, we think this might be code in DNA. Because what we've done is we've accepted today that we can have, a lot of people have accepted that you can have a creation without a creator. But what they haven't accepted is that you can have code without a programmer, right? And so these guys looked into that DNA and they said, this is absolutely computer code. It's just like code, but it's deeper than anything we've ever seen. It is far beyond us. It is way beyond us. Yeah, it was written by God, by a creator. And so there's a lot of things that are happening where science has proven it. And literally, what I'm hearing from people deep in the medical world is, in order to not believe in God in science, you've got to completely ignore so many things, because science has proven it over and over and over again right now. And, we could get into a bunch of different talks about this, but does science prove God? Yeah. Matter of fact, it's clearly seen.
Yeah. Amen.
So, amen. Got anything else on that?
I mean, there's just different things that I can think of. I don't know if it was you who were talking about this, but that there were scientists that were trying to study and come up with a list of all the requirements for there to be life on a planet.
Yeah.
And they came up with a small list, and then they began to study it, and then they learned, oh no, you need a lot more, and the list kept getting longer and longer. Even Jupiter, it's the biggest planet in our solar system, correct? It's one of them.
Yeah.
But without Jupiter, without Jupiter being that big mass of gravitational pull, of where all the small meteors and stuff like that, they're pulled to Jupiter so that they don't destroy us. It's Jupiter's there for a purpose. So there's all these different things that have to fall perfectly into play for there to be life on a planet.
Even in our body, there's particular bonding agents that have to be at the exact right place, and for them to come together, it is statistically, I would say statistically impossible, but you can say there's always a possibility, but it's like one in a number that goes on and on and on. It's never going to happen, and not going to happen twice, and that's what keeps us together. It's designed by the Lord in that way. And speaking of Jupiter, did you hear that they took away the planet status from Pluto? That's messed up. Yeah. So I saw also that Jew and Greek put on there about Einstein's theory that was confirmed, and then he says that the Bible tells us that God stretches out the heavens like a curtain. All of these things, they're proving themselves out. Yeah. I mean, at a rapid pace right now, and it's really exciting. The issue is we don't hear the news about it. We don't. Yeah. Why? Because you do have the devil trying to keep that down. He doesn't want people to know the truth, but it's coming out. And I mean, it's becoming even more clearly seen than it ever has been before. Science proves the Bible. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, and I shared with you an article that I found today, just like that the Bible was very accurate in certain scientific things way before it was actually, like the Bible talks about, how about like the water cycle, precipitation, condensation, all that jazz. I mean, it talks about how the earth was round. The Bible talks about stuff like this, before we actually had the scientific proof.
Exactly. It's awesome.